Thanks for everyone for coming. My name's Scott. I'd like to tamp down expectations a little bit. I am not an astronomer. Yeah, you would think, but I'm not. I'm a writer and a communicator and a lover of the skies. And as someone who loves astronomy so much, I write about it, I talk about it. I'm sure my kids would like me to stop talking about it. One of the most important things for me is dark skies, and it's something that we are kind of losing, and we've sort of made a decision to lose. And it's kind of a strange choice to have made as a society, but here we are. Before I start, I just wanted to point out that a lot of these slides are my own work, but a lot of them I borrowed from the International Dark Sky Association, which is down here. Whoops, sorry about that. It's a great group of people who are also heavily invested in preserving dark skies. And you can go to their website, and I provided links in the slides, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But they're a great group of people. So I borrowed some of their free outreach materials, and you can get it from their website if you'd like as well, or you can have these if you want them, and away we go. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I almost forgot to say that. So tonight, we're going to talk about outdoor lighting, what light pollution is, because there's more than one type, and you might be surprised. Why it is harmful for us to have too much light at night, types of lamps, fundamentals of design. I'm not an engineer, so we're going to just breeze through that. And then the important thing, what can we do to fix this problem? Here's a photo. By the way, the IDA, the Dark Sky Association, is based in Tucson, which is a great southwestern city which has a wonderful culture of dark skies. So a lot of the buildings and pictures that you see here were taken in the western part of the country. So we'll pretty quickly get to know which are the ones that are here and which are the ones that are there. So here's a picture that looks like it's Darth Valley. And high overhead, you can see this band of stars here. That's the Milky Way. I talked to a lot of people, and they often say that not only can they not see the Milky Way here, but they didn't know that you could see it at all, anywhere at all. And it makes me sad because there was a time when there was no light pollution. Years and years ago, the first astronomers would see this beautiful band of light arcing across the sky. That's our own galaxy, thousands of light years away, stretching out in front of us. And it reminds me of a story. My story about this topic begins about 20 years ago, and it's just as surprising to me as it is to you that it was so long ago. I was sitting on a beach in a small town called Olympos in Turkey. It's right on the Mediterranean coast. And it was right around early November, so the sun was setting kind of early. And as the sun set behind the hills, I just sat on the beach and watched it disappear behind the hills. And as the sky darkened, there were so many stars that I had never seen before. I grew up on Long Island, and so if you've ever been to Long Island, you know that there's like 8. But there, it was remarkable how dark it was. And there was the Milky Way in front of me. And it was the most incredible thing that I can remember at that time ever seeing. And even though I was so far from home in this little town that I didn't know how I got to, I felt like I was home. And it was this incredible pull that was bringing me toward the stars. And it was a moment that I'll hopefully never forget. And so every time I see a photo of the Milky Way, it reminds me of that. It reminds me of who we are. It's part of our lives, part of how we got here, and part of our culture. And it's interesting because it was about 10 years later that I moved up here, and things kind of changed at that point. So what is the nightscape? Well, for many centuries, the nightscape was the moon and the stars. During a full moon, it'd be relatively bright, and during a new moon, rather dark. And so, you might have noticed that there's no moon during a new moon, so you get to see more stars. And if you could become attuned to the motions of the moon and the timing of the calendar, this becomes something that becomes ingrained, and you can't live without it. And it's kind of how our predecessors used to be. But for about the last 100 years, urban dwellers, it's really the focus has been taken off the stars, and it's become more about the buildings and the streets and the open spaces. And you can see up in the upper picture, there's the Milky Way stretching across, and down the lower picture, it's just artificial light. And these pictures are kind of neat, I admit, but they tug at my heart, though. And so light pollution is a wasted light that performs no function or task. It's such as sky glow or glare. And so sky glow is what you get when unnecessary lights are pointed upward toward the sky and they block out stars. I'm sure we've all seen this. You go to a big city, maybe even around here, the train station, for instance, you just can't see anything. Glare is sort of lower level light pollution that's more directed directly at you. Street lights, that sort of thing. So artificial light that goes to where it's not supposed to, like into a neighbor's window, or maybe your own, or into the sky. And if you look at the map below, you can see how much light pollution this is. This was taken from, I believe it's the International Space Station, but I could be wrong. You can see, here's the United States over there on the left, and there's just lights everywhere. And there's this really depressing statistic that says that something like 75% of the world can no longer see clear, dark skies anymore, and that's a shame. So for about the last 50 years, as lighting has become more affordable, more lighting has made its way into our nighttime lives. Places that are once dark are now brightly lit, even though that has nothing has changed. Our society has not changed. It has not become more dangerous. In fact, statistics show the opposite, where society is actually safer now than it was 30 years ago. Yet we've decided to light everything up. In 2001, Sky Telescope, a great magazine, there's an astronomer who was writing for them by the name of John Bordel. He wrote about a way to measure the sky's brightness. He came up with what is now called the Bordel Scale. And again, you can see up at the top, there's a beautiful night sky. I think that looks like it was taken, I think, in New Zealand, perhaps. And down below is the same scene, but now it's been adjusted so that you can see what it looks like in different places. So level 1 is an excellent dark sky site. That's pretty much the same as the upper picture. I kind of think Croton is maybe somewhere in the 4, 5, 6 neighborhood, and then 8 or 9 is just nothing. So wouldn't it be great if we can get more to the right-hand side of that chart? So outdoor lighting. Street lighting, as we know, it began about 300 years ago and was oil lamps, and then by the 18th century, those oil lamps are still being used. By the 19th century, gas lamps became used, and by the 20th century, it was electric lamps in wide use, and so that's what we have now. And as lighting becomes cheaper, it's more and more prevalent. Today, we're lighting up everything, streetlights and parks and stadiums, parking lots, you name it. Everything is lit. It's supposed to provide a safe and secure environment at night and extend the use of parks and walkways into the night, which is great. I have no problem with this. It's wonderful. I'm not saying we should live in the dark, but there need to be controls. And we need to enhance notable and historic features like that beautiful fountain, and enhance travel on roads and intersections. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Did you have a question, Eddie? Oh, I thought I saw you raise your hand. It should enhance visibility, not impede it, and not produce a glare and become part of the entire landscape. It should not trespass. We need to keep light where it needs to be and not decide that you across the street need to see my lights. We have this neighbor in my neighborhood who, for some reason, only in the warm months, they park their SUV in front of their house and turn the brights on for hours, and this is annoying. I don't know why they do it. It should provide a safe and secure environment, and make things usable. But is all of it needed? It's hard to see because of the projector, but this is a shot out my window of my living room at 3 a.m. I took that a few weeks ago. Whoops. And if you can see, there's this giant light here. You can actually probably also see there's like a donut sticker. I think it's like a unicorn mermaid donut of some kind stuck to the window. But here's this light fixture right outside my house, and I couldn't get a good picture inside my living room, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know why Croton would decide that they want to light up my living room at 3 o'clock in the morning for me. I appreciate it, I guess. But no, I don't. It's not true. And here is we light up the trash in my neighborhood. This is I live up in Amberlands in one of the townhouse developments, and we have these trash corrals. And this is, you can see over there in the upper left, there's not one but 2 lights pointing into the trash area. I don't understand it. The reason they give is for security, and because they want to keep wildlife out of the bins. And while I fully endorse not having raccoons living in our trash bins, there are other ways to go about it. Latches, for one. That would seem like the obvious solution. They also can bind the lids together which they do sometimes, but they break. It does look like somebody has been cutting them. I noticed that too. I guess people are lazy, or not really lazy, but just lazy enough. As far as security goes, more light tends to make people feel safer, but the connection to additional lighting and lower crime has not been established. I have not spoken to anyone on the Croton police, I have to admit that, but I've done a lot of reading and talking with people online and in other places, and a lot of law enforcement people believe that additional light actually makes things easier for criminals, because they don't have to worry about carrying the lights with them. So that's one less thing for them to worry about. So all this additional lighting is not really making things any more secure. And in England, 106 out of 141 councils either dim their streetlights or turn them off completely after midnight in order to save money. And over a 14-year period, researchers weren't able to find an increase in road accidents or crime or anything related to security. And so I kind of think that reason, the security reason, is not true. It just makes us feel better. And it's an interesting thing that it seems like the eastern part of the country, as you saw on the map a few slides back, we've basically been in love with electric lights from the minute they came on. We've been lighting up the world as if it were daytime all the time for however long it's been, but I don't know. And so we get to what good lighting should look like. On the left-hand side of the screen, I think this is a firehouse somewhere in Arizona, I'm not sure. But if you look at the left, you can see this very familiar looking street light. I think we've all seen this type before, be it over roads or in parking lots or wherever you happen to see street lights. Maybe you have one in your living room. And you can look at what they do. If you look at the graphic in the upper part, you can see that there's a bright section right below the light, but then the light spreads upward at this really harsh angle. Well, where is that going? That's going up into the sky, where it then just continues on forever. Just light doesn't stop unless it's been impeded. So that is bad lighting. And then on the right, you can see what's called a shielded light. Shielded lights are lights that are designed to direct that light downward toward the ground and only light the places that need to be lit. And so right behind it, a beautiful starry sky, and you can actually see the difference between over here on the left, the old lighting in the firehouse right above the firehouse doors, and on the right, much cleaner lighting, much more attractive, better skies. By the way, this light on the right might look a little familiar. To me, at least, it's not my graphic, but to me, this kind of looks like some of the new streetlights they put on Riverside 9A, kind of as you head north out of town. It's the same style of light, but we'll talk more about that again shortly. And so the unshielded lights waste energy, and this is one of the biggest problems with light pollution that no one ever talks about. This is the Escondido Education Center. Before and after they did a light audit and did some re-engineering of their light program, unnecessary lights in the roof only added to their light bill, not to the safety of the parking lot. And you can see they were lighting up the roof. And I don't know if anybody has ever spent any time driving along the Garden State Parkway around Paramus. There's that IKEA there. And every time I drive past this place, which admittedly is not that often, it drives me nuts. Because there is an entire, I think it's the south wall of the building, which has this gigantic yellow panel on it that they light up like it's daytime for no reason other than to say, there's a big yellow panel here, and then people identify that with IKEA and away they go. But it's absurd to put that much energy into lighting up a wall, even a yellow one, and yellow is my favorite color. So if we shield lights, they produce, unshielded lights produce sky glow, as you can see in the bottom picture. Every light from that city, as beautiful as that is wasted light. That's light that's going probably not where it should go. There's the old adage that if you can see lights from an airplane, that represents somebody paying to light the bottom of your airplane, which seems silly. And on the right, you can see the difference between sky glow on the left and glare on the right. You can barely see that there is like an ambulance or a van of some kind hiding there. Here's another unshielded street light. I'm sure that those people with their curtains drawn on the third floor there, or second floor, they probably don't want to live like that. And so thanks to that light fixture outside my house, sort of the same situation for us as well. Anyway, so unshielded lights waste energy. Light that spills out away from its task is wasted energy. Wasted energy equals wasted money. And this, for a lot of people, is the biggest motivator to turning down the lights. You're powering that light. You have to pay the bill for that energy. And why would you want to do that if you don't need to? Environmentally responsible outdoor lighting reduces this waste and costs no more than other light fixtures. So you can go to the hardware store and you can pick out that light fixture or that light fixture. They cost about the same. Please don't pick this light fixture. And is it all necessary? Here's that same light fixture that I showed you from my living room on that same night. Actually, this is not that same night. I lied. But you can see that it's lighting up that tree, and it's lighting up my house. Here's this. This is just glare on the house. I don't need the side of my house lit. And that's a rectangular light fixture. So it's got 4 sides, and they could easily redirect that light or change the bulb. I don't know. It seems unnecessary. And there's places like this all over town. I didn't feel comfortable going onto people's lawns and saying, "Can I photograph your terrible lighting?" But a single 100-watt light bulb uses the equivalent of a half-ton of coal per year just to power that one bulb. Yeah, exactly. Wow, right? And multiply that out by however many. That's absurd, right? Why would we want to? And so then this rolls from light pollution into money, into fossil fuels, and so here's another graphic from the Dark Sky Association. Light pollution is costing us quite a lot. 13% of residential electricity use in the United States is for outdoor lighting. 13% of the power that we use is for outdoor lighting. That number shocks me. That's a huge amount of money, and of that, bad outdoor lighting wastes a half kilowatt hour per house per night. That's about as much as it takes to run a 50-inch plasma TV for an hour. So you turn off that light, there's a free hour of TV for you. There's the carbon dioxide. You can read this all. I don't want to bore you with all this, but I mean it's a huge mess. 600 million trees would need to be planted to offset just the energy we're wasting to power the lights that we're using to light up garbage bins. That's, like I said. But there's more. It also has a negative impact on wildlife. Animals and plants, if you're not aware, they have not evolved to deal with man-made artificial lighting. So they have all evolved to live by a rhythm based on light and dark cycle. By a light and dark cycle, they can become disoriented by too much artificial light at night. And if we have a few minutes at the end and you feel like seeing a movie, I brought a short clip with us, with myself. I brought a short clip along in which they talk about light pollution. And they discuss how birds get disoriented and they fly into buildings and they go the wrong direction. Turtles that are trying to return to the sea get disoriented by city lights, and they get confused, and they see it as they misperceive it as the ocean, the glimmering light off the ocean, and so they go the wrong way. And it's really exactly, and it's terrible. It interferes with migration and with mating and foraging for food, and with sleep. Plants have problems too. And speaking of sleep, there's a negative impact on us too. Light that trespasses into our bedrooms disrupts sleep patterns. Glare in your eyes can be blinding and reduce our night vision. And there's new research being done that discovers the impact on our biological clocks. And if you're not sure if you're getting too much light at night, here's a fun little experiment you can do. Maybe tonight wouldn't be the best night, but it doesn't really matter because it'll get dark. Take a book or a magazine, or if you have the stomach for it, the newspaper, and go into your bedroom, turn off all the lights, open the curtains as wide as they go, and then face backwards so that your back is to the window, and see if you can read the paper. Yeah. If you can, you've got a bad scene on your hands. I feel very fortunate that in my bedroom I cannot, but in other parts of my house I can. You can? Well, I think that's because we have a hermit crab and that has light, so I think that's different. But there's more here. The negative impact on human health. Recent studies have linked excessive light to recent increases in cases of depression and breast cancer and prostate cancer. Research has shown that bright nighttime lighting interferes with our body's ability to produce melatonin. That's the hormone that regulates our circadian sleep and wake cycles and offers antioxidant protections. Decreased melatonin has been linked to higher rates of depression. I said that above, so I will not repeat myself. This also goes hand in hand with overuse of smartphones. Yep, it's the same problem because smartphones, actually any color LED screen puts out this blue light that is so amped up that it actually looks white. That blue light is the color of the sky, and so our bodies sort of perceive it as being daytime. And of course, there's also the negative impact on astronomy. This is one of our greatest natural resources, and I can't be too poetic about this, though I won't tonight. It's who we are and where we came from, and it's really too important a resource to lose. For millennia, it was everything to us. We lived by the sky, and we're letting it go away. And if you remember a little while ago, I mentioned that story about the first time I saw the Milky Way on the beach in Turkey. Well, the second time I saw the Milky Way was when I moved here. And when my older daughter was about 1.5, 2 years old, she was just about 2, and she was having a hard time sleeping. I scooped her up in my arms, and I went outside. And there, high above my house were, if you're an astronomy fan at all, you know that there are these 3 bright stars called the Summer Triangle. And the Milky Way cuts right through that. And there I was, about 40 miles north of New York City, and I could see the Milky Way from my front yard. It was an incredible sight. I was so amazed that I almost dropped my daughter. And it had, I admit, it wasn't that, but it was this very distinct, bless you, if you know it's there kind of thing. We've all seen things like that. And it was incredible. And at that moment, I fell in love with Croton. And in the 10 years that have passed, I can't see it anymore. I haven't changed anything. My eyes have changed, sure, but the Milky Way is gone. And it really makes me sad to think of all of those photons, all of that light from all those stars traveling all that way. It only has one chance, but it's lost behind the glare. Just like that guy. That guy over there is lost too. So over there, you see some irresponsible, unshielded lighting. And then over here he is again, different lights. I guess they just, before and after shot, they changed lights quickly. But what can we do? But fortunately, not all is lost. And here's the good news. Light pollution isn't like other forms of pollution, though it contributes to them. It's really hard to find people deciding that, no, there is no light pollution when there clearly is. There's no mess to clean up. There's no water to filter. And less light pollution is just a flip of a switch away. We can all just decide to make things better. And in fact, reducing light pollution will also help to reduce other forms of pollution. Like we talked about, all the coal, all the fossil fuels that we burn just to power the lights across the street, gone. So here's a solution. Some years ago, the city of Vienna reduced its street lighting by 50% for 1 hour each night. Nobody noticed, except for astronomers who detected a significant reduction in light pollution. The city treasury, on the other hand, was all too aware. They saved 200,000 euros a year. That's just from cutting their lights for 1 hour for a year to 50%. That's it. Imagine they decided to turn those lights off, or at least some of them. Imagine they made it 2 hours. Well, if they made it 2 hours, it would be 400,000 euros, I guess. But still, that's a remarkable stat. And imagine if we did that around here. I mean, this is a small town. We don't need to light up things the way that we do. I like this car. It kind of reminds me of the DeLorean from Back to the Future, if it were a station wagon. So here's some other solutions. You can use what are called full cutoff or fully shielded outdoor lights. That means that no light crosses above the 90-degree angle. And it angles light downward toward the ground where you need it. You get a little bit of a spread, but nothing is going up. Fully shielded lighting can be purchased or it can be retrofitted. Another great idea is to use timers and dimmers and motion sensors. Motion sensors in a parking lot or a house provide an alert. So if somebody triggers the light, you know something's going on. So it's not just this light that's on all the time.
That hurts my eyes just looking at
Yeah, isn't that terrible? I can't even figure out what this is a photo of. Yeah, isn't it? I'm sad to say, I think this is actually like a summer carnival. Yeah, I mean, this thing over here, to me at least, looks like a ride of some kind or a fried dough booth. So this is a pretty crummy picture, but I like it. On the left, you see some poor lighting. They might look familiar. I remember when I was a kid, my neighbors had lights like this one down here on the bottom left, the area floodlight, to light up their pool at night, which they never used. So they had 3 of them that were pointed right at the pool. So they had this beautiful pool. So the lights were directed downward, lighting everything up, and then reflecting off the water back up into the. It was a mess. And then there's this typical yard light. I'm sure you've seen most of those. And then on the good side, you have replacements for all 3 of those. And if you notice, they're all shielded and they all point the light back downward. I have seen all 3 of these fixtures. I went and looked myself at the Home Depot up at in Cortland Town Center. They're all there, or at least one similar to it. These are not meant to represent brand name lights. But I'm going to fly kind of through this. Like I said, I'm not an engineer. I don't have the background to talk about this stuff that well. But there are types of lights. There are 4 basic types: incandescent, fluorescent, high-intensity discharge, including mercury vapor, metal halide, high-pressure sodium and low-pressure sodium, and light-emitting diodes. Those are still relatively new, but there are more and more of them around these days. So incandescent lights, those are the ones that we have in our houses most of the time, though they were they banned a few years ago or being phased out? I don't really remember. But those are the ones, you know what they are. It's the bulb, and they have the wire, and the electricity runs through, and they actually produce more heat than light. So they're really great to keep your house warmish. But if you want to light things, they're not really the best idea. And plus, they die very quickly, and then that's more and more money down the drain. And they're not really recyclable either. Fluorescent lights, these are mostly used in commercial settings. So if anyone's ever been to a school or to an office building, these are those. And some of my words got hidden behind the picture, but it produces light when you run electricity through a gas, and they're more efficient than incandescent bulbs, and they last 10 times longer. So that's a good move. But the problem with those is they contain mercury, which is a poison, and we don't want to be involved with mercury. And then these are mostly high-intensity discharge lights are mainly used in larger outdoor areas, stadiums, parking lots, places like those. They're very powerful, very efficient, and they have a long service life. And so the most common types are mercury vapor, metal halide, and high-pressure sodium. So sodium lights are the ones that light up stadiums, like so you can play ball in the middle of the night. And so the low-pressure sodium ones are considered a high-intensity discharge lamp, but some has some unique characteristics. If you want, I can send you the slides here, and we can talk about this more. If you're a lighting engineer, I applaud you, but we'll talk about this. We can talk about this some other time. I want to talk about LEDs, though. Light-emitting diode lights, these are what we started out a while ago, is we would put them on our Christmas trees, right? They're the little ones. They have this pleasant glow to them. They're inexpensive. Sorry about the music. They're efficient. They cost next to nothing to run. And this is all great, but their low cost has inspired people to use and overuse them. Studies have shown that LEDs have actually contributed more to light pollution than they have than they've fixed. People are actually lighting up everything, like everything. Now I'm amazed. I think somebody mentioned that the cemetery lights things up in the middle of the night. It's unbelievable that, and I'm not sure that it's all LEDs, but I have a hunch. White LEDs are particularly tough on the eye. They cause pain and temporary blindness, especially in older people. And if you notice some of the road lights, the street lights around town, especially the ones that hang high over like Riverside and 9A, I don't encourage you to look at them, but if you want to have a look, I think they replaced them sometime in the last, 2 years. And they're blinding, and they're painful, and they feel like razor blades on the eyes. And some of the people I interact with online who are also concerned about light pollution, we all agree that they're really terrible. And I really wish that I'm not sure if it's the village of Croton or if it's the town of Cortland or the county, had kind of done some more planning and research before they put those in, because now that they're in, it's going to take a lot to try to convince somebody to take them out and replace them. But they're truly terrible. And furthermore, the American Medical Association has recently adopted guidance against using white LEDs